Enough, old man! My son-in-law slammed his fist on the table during Christmas dinner and kicked me out of the room, saying that no one wanted to see me there. But just then, the door opened and my son walked in, his eyes filled with rage. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The phone rang 3 times before I picked up. Ellen's voice came through, sugar sweet and artificial. Dad, hi, listen, Woody and I were thinking, why don't you come over for Christmas dinner? Just the 3 of us, nice and cozy. I stared at my kitchen wall in my sunny slope house, counting the years since I'd last received such an invitation. 2, maybe 3. The invitation felt wrong, like finding a $20 bill on a deserted street. Too convenient, too easy. That's unexpected, I said carefully. I know we've been busy, but it's Christmas. Family should be together, right? Her laugh sounded rehearsed. Come on, Dad. It'll be fun. Fun. That word hung in the air between us like smoke. I thought about last Christmas. I'd spent it alone with a frozen turkey dinner from Safeway, watching old westerns. The year before that, Ellen had texted not called, saying they were doing their own thing. No explanation, no apology. What time? I asked. 6 o'clock Christmas Eve, our place in Arcadia. She paused. Oh, and Dad? Don't worry about bringing anything. Just yourself. Just myself, not a gift, not wine. Just my presence, stripped bare of expectations. After I hung up, I sat in my worn recliner and let my mind drift back 8 years. I could still see Ellen in her wedding dress, radiant and hopeful. Woodrow had seemed decent enough back then, polite, ambitious, full of plans for their future. They'd found a beautiful 2-story house on East Cactus Road, but the down payment was crushing them. Dad, we're so close, Ellen had said, her eyes pleading. Just $35,000 and the house is ours. I'd written the check without hesitation. It was most of my savings at the time, but seeing her happiness felt worth it. Pay me back when you can, I'd told her. No rush. That was 8 years ago. I'd never seen a penny of it. 3 years later, Woodrow needed a truck for his job, something about impressing clients at the logistics company. Just $12,000, Grover. I'll pay you back in 6 months, I promise. 6 months became a year. A year became silence. Now, standing in front of the mirror on Christmas Eve, adjusting my button-down shirt, I studied my reflection. 65 years old. Gray hair thinning at the temples. Weathered hands that had sorted through millions of pieces of mail during my 30 years as a federal postal inspector. I looked like exactly what they thought I was. A harmless old man living on a fixed income. Perfect. I drove my 12-year-old Honda Civic through North Phoenix as the sun set, painting the desert sky orange and purple. Their neighborhood in Arcadia was a different world from mine. Houses here started at $500,000. Holiday lights draped every roofline. Luxury SUVs sat in every driveway. Their house loomed ahead, 2 stories of cream stucco with a terracotta roof, exactly as I remembered helping them buy. Christmas decorations covered the front yard, inflatable snowmen, twinkling lights, a wooden nativity scene. The mortgage on this place was probably $3,800 a month, maybe more. I parked on the street and walked up the driveway. Through the front window, I could see movement inside. My hand hesitated before knocking. The door swung open. Ellen stood there in a designer sweater that probably cost more than my electric bill. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Dad, you made it. She leaned in for a brief hug that felt more like a business transaction than affection. Come in, come in. The interior was impressive. Vaulted ceilings, marble countertops visible in the kitchen, leather furniture arranged with magazine-perfect precision. Everything screamed money they didn't have. Woodrow appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He'd put on weight since I'd last seen him, his face fuller, his movements slower. Grover, Merry Christmas. No hug, barely a handshake, just a nod, like I was a neighbor he tolerated. Merry Christmas, Woody. It's Woodrow, he corrected, his jaw tightening. I smiled. Right, Woodrow. The dining table was set for 3. Only 3. I'd half expected to see Hubert. My older son lived in Dallas, but usually made it home for the holidays. Is Hubert coming? Ellen exchanged a quick glance with Woodrow. Oh, he's busy this year, work stuff. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. Hubert had never missed Christmas without calling me personally. But I nodded anyway, filing the information away like I used to file case evidence during fraud investigations. Dinner was catered. I recognized the containers from Romano's, an upscale Italian place downtown. Probably $400 worth of food. I thought about my Social Security check, which was exactly $2,143 a month. These two were drowning in debt, but still buying expensive takeout. "This looks wonderful," I said, taking my seat. Ellen served the food while Woodrow poured wine, a bottle with a label I didn't recognize but suspected cost more than it should. The conversation started stiffly, centered on weather and traffic, safe topics that required no real connection. "So, Dad," Ellen said, cutting her chicken, "how's the house treating you?" There it was, the real reason for the invitation, lurking just beneath the surface. "Same as always," I replied, "quiet, manageable." "Must be a lot of work, though," Woodrow interjected. "Big place for one person. All that maintenance, yard work, repairs." "I manage fine. But you're 65 now," Ellen added quickly. "That's, getting up there. Don't you think about downsizing? Maybe something easier? There are some really nice retirement communities." "Assisted living facilities," Woodrow corrected her, not even trying to hide what he meant. I set down my fork carefully, the metal clicking against the plate louder than it should have been in the sudden silence. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of my own home," I said evenly. Ellen reached across the table, her hand hovering near mine, but not quite touching. "We're just worried about you, Dad, alone in that old house on East Vogel Avenue. What if something happens? What if you fall?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When had the caring girl who used to bring me hand-drawn Father's Day cards turned into this stranger with calculation in her eyes? "I appreciate your concern," I said slowly, "but I'm not going anywhere." Woodrow's face darkened. He took a long drink of wine, then another. The atmosphere in the room shifted, like pressure building before a storm. And I realized, sitting there in the house I'd helped them buy, eating food they couldn't afford, watching them circle around what they really wanted, this wasn't going to be a pleasant evening. This was going to be a revelation. I just didn't know yet how ugly it would get. The pretense lasted through the main course, barely. Ellen cleared the plates with movements that seemed too practiced, too deliberate. Woodrow refilled his wine glass for the third time. I watched the burgundy liquid splash against crystal and remembered when I'd bought them those glasses as a housewarming gift. Waterford. $300 for a set of 8. "Dessert?" Ellen asked. Her voice had that forced brightness people use when they're stalling. "I'm fine, sweetheart." She sat back down anyway, folding her hands on the table. The gesture reminded me of negotiations I'd witnessed during fraud investigations. That moment before someone asks for something they know they shouldn't. Woodrow leaned back in his chair. It creaked under his weight. "Grover, let's cut to the chase. You're not getting any younger." "Neither are you," I replied pleasantly. His eyes narrowed. Ellen put a hand on his arm, but he shrugged it off. "We're being practical here," he continued. "That house of yours, it's 70 years old? Foundation issues, plumbing from the 50s, electrical that probably isn't up to code. You're sitting on a maintenance nightmare. I'd inspected federal buildings for 3 decades. My house was in better shape than half the government facilities in Maricopa County. But I let him talk. "The property taxes alone must be killing you," Ellen added. $3,200 a year, right? That's almost 3 months of your Social Security." She'd done her homework. I had to give her that. "I manage," I said again. Woodrow stood abruptly, walked to the sideboard, and returned with a manila folder. He dropped it on the table between us. The sound echoed in the dining room. "We have a solution," he said. I didn't touch the folder. "Do you?" Ellen opened it for me, spreading papers across the expensive tablecloth. I recognized the forms immediately. A quitclaim deed. My name on the grantor line, theirs on the grantee. All it needed was my signature and a notary stamp. "This way," Ellen explained, her voice taking on a rehearsed quality. "You wouldn't have to worry about the house anymore. We'd handle everything. Maintenance, taxes, insurance. You could move somewhere easier. Sunrise Senior. Living over on Thunderbird has beautiful apartments. Studios start around $2,800 a month." "Which is more than my entire Social Security check," I interrupted quietly. "We'd help," she said quickly. Too quickly. with the difference. And you'd have peace of mind knowing the house is taken care of. I looked at the papers. The deed would transfer my home, worth approximately $340,000 according to recent Zillow estimates, to them for exactly $0. No sale, no compensation, just a gift, tied up in pretty language about family and care and my supposed inability to handle my own life. A memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome. Ellen at 15, crying in my kitchen because she'd wrecked her mom's car backing out of the driveway. I'd held her, told her mistakes happen, paid the $2,200 deductible without complaint. Where was that girl now? "This is generous of you to think of me," I said carefully. "But I'm not interested." Woodrow's face flushed. "Don't be stubborn. You're alone in a deteriorating house. My house is fine. And you're being irresponsible. What happens when you can't climb stairs anymore? When you can't drive? You expect us to drop everything and take care of you? I haven't asked you for anything." The words came out harder than I intended. Ellen's expression shifted, something cold creeping into her eyes. "You're right, Dad. You haven't asked, but we've given plenty, haven't we? The last 10 years? 8 years ago, I gave you $35,000 for this house." My voice stayed level, but I felt something crystallizing inside me, turning sharp and clear. 3 years ago, I gave Woodrow $12,000 for his truck. Neither of you has ever mentioned paying me back. Not once. Silence crashed over the table. "That was different," Ellen said finally. "That was helping family. And this isn't?" I gestured at the papers. "This looks like you helping yourselves." Woodrow slammed his hand on the table. The wine glasses jumped. "That money was your obligation. Parents are supposed to help their kids." "Help, yes. Fund your lifestyle while you treat me like an inconvenience? No." "Lifestyle?" Ellen's voice rose. "Do you know how hard it is? Woodrow's job barely covers the mortgage. We've got $47,000 in credit card debt." "Ellen!" Woodrow snapped, but the damage was done. So that was it. They weren't drowning. They'd already drowned. The fancy house, the expensive food, the designer clothes, all of it was smoke and mirrors held together with debt and desperation. And my house was their life raft. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against their hardwood floors. "I think I should go." "Dad, wait." Ellen reached for me, but I stepped back. "You invited me here to manipulate me into signing away my home," I said quietly. "Did you really think I wouldn't see it? I spent 30 years investigating fraud, Ellen. I know what a scam looks like." Her face went pale, then red. "It's not a scam. We're trying to help you. By taking the only asset I have left?" "You're being selfish," Woodrow shouted. "We need that house more than you do. We have plans, investments." "You have debts," I corrected. "And those are your problem, not mine." I reached for my jacket on the back of my chair. My hand stayed steady even though something inside me was fracturing, breaking apart into pieces I wasn't sure could be reassembled. Ellen started crying, real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. "After everything we've done for you?" "What exactly have you done?" I asked. "Name one thing in the last 5 years." She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Woodrow for support he couldn't give. I remembered her 10th birthday. I'd worked double shifts for 3 months to buy her the bicycle she'd wanted. I remembered her college graduation, how proud I'd been. I remembered walking her down the aisle, believing I was giving her to someone who would cherish her. When had the girl I raised become this? "I'm leaving," I said. Woodrow blocked my path to the door. His face was dark with rage, his breathing heavy. For a moment, I wondered if he might actually try to stop me physically. "Move," I said quietly. He didn't. His fists clenched at his sides, and I saw something dangerous flash across his expression. The look of a desperate man with too much to lose. The house felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Outside, Christmas lights twinkled in cheerful ignorance of what was unfolding inside this perfect Arcadia home. And I realized, standing there facing my son-in-law's barely controlled fury, that this was about to get much worse before it got better. Woodrow took a step closer, not threatening exactly, but invasive, close enough that I could smell the wine on his breath, see the vein pulsing in his temple. "You're not going anywhere until we settle this," he said. I'd dealt with aggressive subjects during my career, mail fraud suspects who'd threatened me with everything from lawyers to baseball bats. The trick was staying calm, denying them the reaction they wanted. Step back, Woodrow. Or what? He spread his arms wide, a bitter laugh escaping. You'll report me? Call the cops? Tell them your family's trying to help you? Ellen stood frozen by the table, torn between stopping her husband and supporting him. Her indecision told me everything I needed to know about where her loyalties lay. I sidestepped Woodrow, angling toward the door. He moved to block me again, but this time Ellen intervened. Woody, let him go. We can't force him. The house should be ours. His voice cracked on the last word. We've waited long enough. Every month that mortgage payment comes due, every credit card bill. We're drowning here, and he's sitting on $340,000 doing nothing with it. Doing nothing? The words came out colder than I intended. I'm living in it. It's called a home, Woodrow. Maybe you've forgotten what that means. His face went crimson. If he'd been a cartoon character, steam would have poured from his ears. The image almost made me laugh. Here was this grown man, 40 years old, having a tantrum because he couldn't steal my house. You ungrateful, he started. Choose your next words very carefully, I warned. He bit back whatever he'd planned to say. Smart. Something in my tone must have reminded him that I wasn't quite the helpless old fool he'd been treating me as. I grabbed my jacket from the chair and headed for the door. This time, neither of them stopped me. But as my hand touched the doorknob, Ellen's voice cut through the tension. 5 years ago, she said quietly, when Woody lost his first job, you know who helped us? Nobody. We were 2 months behind on the mortgage, maxed out on credit cards, and I called you. Do you remember what you said? I turned slowly. I remember. You said you'd already given us enough, that we needed to learn to manage our own finances. Her voice shook. We almost lost everything. The memory was different in my mind. She'd called asking for $15,000. No explanation of why they needed it. No acknowledgement of the $47,000 they already owed me. Just a demand disguised as a request. I'd said no because I'd seen the pattern forming, the endless cycle of bailouts that would never stop unless someone broke it. You were spending money you didn't have on things you didn't need, I said. I'd already helped you buy this house. I'd already bought Woody's truck. At some point, you have to stand on your own. We were family. Ellen's composure cracked completely. Family helps each other. I did help. You just wanted more than help. You wanted me to fund your entire life. Woodrow jumped in, sensing an opening. See? This is what I'm talking about. You turn your back on your own daughter, then have the nerve to act like we're the bad guys for asking you to do something useful with that house. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't spontaneous desperation. They'd been planning this for a while. The Christmas invitation, the paperwork ready to go, the arguments practiced, probably since Ellen's failed phone call 5 years ago. I thought about the girl who'd cried over a fender bender, the teenager who'd wanted to be a teacher, who talked about helping kids who came from broken homes like some of her friends, that Ellen would have been horrified by this version of herself. When did you become this person? I asked her directly. She flinched. What? When did you turn into someone who invites her father to Christmas dinner just to con him out of his home? It's not a con. It's exactly a con. I held up the quitclaim deed papers I'd grabbed from the table. Emotional manipulation, manufactured urgency, paperwork already prepared, classic fraud setup. I've investigated hundreds of these. The only difference is usually it's strangers doing it to seniors, not their own children. Ellen's mouth opened and closed. Woodrow, however, doubled down. You want to talk about fraud? How about hoarding a valuable asset while your family struggles? How about sitting in that rundown house out of pure stubbornness? That's not just selfish, it's cruel. My house isn't run down, I said quietly. New roof 3 years ago, updated electrical panel last year. Plumbing's copper, replaced in 2019. I keep detailed maintenance records, occupational habit. The foundation's solid, the HVAC works perfectly, and I just had it professionally cleaned. Want to know why I can afford all that on a postal pension? They both stared at me. Because I don't spend $400 on takeout Italian food. Because I drive a 12-year-old Honda instead of leasing a Lexus. Because I live within my means. I paused, letting that sink in. You have a debt problem, not an income problem. And my house isn't the solution. The silence stretched. Outside, someone's car drove past. Its radio playing Christmas music. Silent Night drifted through the closed windows, absurdly inappropriate. Woodrow's jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't quite spit out. Ellen looked at the floor, her designer heels sinking slightly into the plush carpet they probably couldn't afford either. "Get out," Woodrow finally said. His voice was tight, controlled, more dangerous than his earlier shouting. "Get out of our house." "Gladly. And don't expect to hear from us again. You want to be alone in that precious house of yours? Fine. Be alone forever." Ellen's head snapped up. "Woody, no," he cut her off. He made his choice. He picked a building over his own daughter. Let him live with it. I looked at Ellen one more time, giving her a chance to disagree, to remember who she used to be. She met my eyes briefly, then looked away. "Merry Christmas," I said, and walked out. The cold December air hit me like a slap. I stood on their driveway, looking at the inflatable snowmen and twinkling lights, and felt something settle inside me. Not sadness, not even anger anymore. Clarity. They'd shown me exactly who they were. More importantly, they'd underestimated who I was. They saw a lonely old man with a house. They didn't see the federal investigator who'd spent 3 decades tracking down people far smarter than them. They didn't know about the connections I still had, the resources I'd carefully built. They thought this was over. I pulled out my phone as I reached my car, scrolling through contacts I hadn't used in years. Thomas Whitmore, my old friend from the prosecutor's office, now ran his own practice on North Central Avenue. We'd worked dozens of cases together. It was Christmas Eve, but Thomas had always been a night owl. Sure enough, he picked up on the 3rd ring. "Grover Matthews," he said, surprise in his voice. "Been a while." "It has," I agreed. "You still handle elder abuse cases?" A pause. Then, "What happened?" I looked back at the house, my daughter's house, bought with my money, used to trap me. The lights sparkled cheerfully, hiding the rot inside. "I need to tell you about my Christmas dinner," I said. And for the first time that evening, I smiled. I sat in my Honda for 20 minutes, parked 3 houses down from Ellen's place, talking to Thomas. The engine idled quietly, heat blasting against the December chill. Through my rearview mirror, I could see their front door, closed, locked, keeping me out like I was the problem. "Let me get this straight," Thomas said, his lawyer voice kicking in. "They prepared a quitclaim deed in advance, invited you specifically to sign it, and used emotional coercion to pressure you? That about covers it. Did you sign anything?" "Not even a Christmas card," he laughed, sharp and knowing. "Good. Listen, what they attempted falls under Arizona Revised Statute 46456, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The fact that they had paperwork ready shows premeditation. Vulnerable adult. The term stung more than I cared to admit. I'm 65, not 90. Doesn't matter. The law protects anyone over 60 from family members attempting to manipulate them out of assets." Papers rustled on his end. "You want to file a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services?" I watched a couple walk past my car, holding hands, carrying wrapped gifts. Normal people having a normal Christmas Eve. "Not yet. I want to know my options first." "Smart." Thomas paused. "How much did you loan them over the years?" $47,000, give or take. A low whistle. "Any documentation?" "Bank statements, checks with their names and the memo lines." My postal inspector training had made me meticulous about records. Every transaction documented, dated, saved. "I've got it all in my file cabinet." "Beautiful. We could file a civil claim for repayment. Add interest. Arizona allows 10% annually on personal loans. That's," he calculated quickly, "probably another 12 to 15,000 depending on the timeline." The number should have satisfied me. Instead, it felt hollow. This wasn't really about money. "I'll think about it," I said. "Thanks, Thomas. Enjoy your Christmas." "You too, Grover, and listen, don't let them bully you into anything. You've got more power here than you realize." After we hung up, I sat in the silence. A text notification lit up my phone. Bonnie Sullivan, my neighbor from East Vogel Avenue. "Grover, saw someone looking at your house earlier. Teenager on a bicycle. Thought you should know." Probably just kids. Still, Bonnie was good about keeping an eye on things. I texted back a thank you and started the drive home. The streets were quiet. Most families already settled in for the evening. I passed a Walgreens, still open, its parking lot empty except for a single car. A few more blocks and I'd be in Sunny Slope, my neighborhood, my street, my life that Ellen and Woodrow thought was so pathetic. My phone rang as I turned onto East Vogel. Unknown number, Dallas area code. Dad? Hubert's voice. Deeper than Ellen's, steadier. My oldest child, the one who'd moved to Texas for work and somehow never lost track of who he was. Hubert, thought you were busy with work. I was. Conference in Austin. Background noise suggested an airport. Just landed in Dallas, heading home. But, Dad, I got a weird call from Ellen earlier this week. I pulled into my driveway, killed the engine. Define weird. She asked if I was coming home for Christmas. When I said probably not, she seemed relieved. Then she said something about you needing to face reality about your living situation. He paused. What's going on? Through my living room window, I could see my modest Christmas tree, a 4-foot artificial pine with lights I'd strung myself. No inflatable snowmen, no professional decorations. Just a simple tree for a man who didn't need to impress anyone. Your sister and Woodrow tried to get me to sign over my house tonight. Silence. Then, they what? I gave him the condensed version, the invitation, the quitclaim deed, the accusations. Hubert's breathing got heavier with each detail. Those greedy... He caught himself. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know things had gotten that bad with them. Neither did I, not until tonight. Are you okay? I mean, really okay? The question surprised me. When had Ellen last asked if I was okay? 5 years ago? 10? I'm fine, son. Honestly, just disappointed. In Ellen? In what she's become. Hubert made a frustrated sound. She wasn't always like this. I remember when we were kids, she'd split her allowance with me if I came up short. She was generous, thoughtful. That was before Woodrow. You think he changed her? I thought about Ellen's progression, the bright college graduate who'd wanted to teach, the eager young professional working retail management, then the engagement, the expensive wedding, the house they couldn't quite afford, the pressure to keep up appearances. I think he enabled something that was already there, I said carefully. The desire for more, the belief that she deserved it without earning it. Hubert sighed. What are you going to do? Haven't decided yet. Thomas Whitmore says I've got options. Thomas from the prosecutor's office? You called him? Old habits. I unlocked my front door, stepped into my quiet house. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. Neat, organized, maintained, not run down, not deteriorating, just lived in by someone who actually cared. Listen, Hubert, I don't want you caught in the middle of this. I'm already in the middle. Ellen's my sister, but what she did is wrong. You know that, right? What they tried tonight, that's not family. That's predatory. Predatory. The word fit. I'd investigated enough fraud cases to recognize the pattern, create a crisis, offer a solution, pressure for immediate action. Ellen and Woodrow had followed the script perfectly. I appreciate you saying that. I mean it, Dad. And listen, I'm changing my flight. I'm coming to Phoenix tomorrow. You don't have to... Yeah, I do. It's Christmas. You shouldn't be alone. And frankly, I want to hear the full story. His voice hardened. And maybe I need to have a conversation with my little sister about respect. After Hubert hung up, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat in my recliner. The same recliner I'd been sitting in when Ellen called with her fake invitation. Had that only been this morning? It felt like weeks ago. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened TV screen. 65 years old, gray-haired, weathered, but not weak, not confused, not incompetent. They'd made a critical error tonight. They'd assumed that because I lived modestly, I was powerless, that because I was alone, I was desperate, that because I was their father, I would tolerate anything. I pulled out my old case files from the hall closet, habits from my postal inspector days. One folder contained every check I'd written to Ellen and Woodrow. Photocopies, actually. The originals were in my safety deposit box at Wells Fargo on 7th Street. $35,000 for the house down payment. Dated, signed, memo line clear, down payment gift. $12,000 for Woodrow's truck, same deal. But here was something interesting. In 2019, I'd also paid $4,200 for Ellen's emergency dental work. I'd forgotten about that. And in 2021, I'd covered $1,800 for their property taxes when Woodrow was between jobs. The total wasn't $47,000, it was $53,900. Plus interest, like Thomas had mentioned. At 10% annually, compounded. I did the math on my phone's calculator. That added roughly $18,000 more. They owed me $71,900. And they'd had the audacity to call me selfish. My doorbell rang. I checked my phone, 9:47 p.m., late for visitors on Christmas Eve. Through the peephole, I saw Bonnie Sullivan from next door, gray-haired, bundled in a thick coat, holding what looked like a plate covered in foil. I opened the door. "Bonnie, everything okay? Just bringing you some cookies, sugar cookies, the ones you liked last year." She peered past me, checking the house like she always did. Bonnie had been a notary before retirement, still maintained that official awareness of details. "You were gone earlier. Christmas party?" "Dinner with my daughter." "Oh, that's nice. How is Ellen? I haven't seen her visit in—" She stopped, reading my expression. "Not a good dinner?" I should have deflected, should have smiled and said everything was fine. Instead, standing in my doorway on Christmas Eve, I found myself saying, "They tried to trick me into signing over my house." Bonnie's eyes widened. "What?" The whole story spilled out. Bonnie listened, her face shifting from shock to anger to something that looked like grim satisfaction. "I knew something was off about that girl," she said when I finished. "Last time she visited, must have been 2 years ago, she was taking pictures of your house with her phone, inside and out, said it was for memories. I thought it was strange then. She was probably getting it appraised," I said, "planning this for a while." "Well," Bonnie straightened up, all 5'3" of her radiating indignation. "You let me know if you need anything, witness testimony, notary services, whatever. People who prey on their own parents," she shook her head. "I've got no patience for that." After she left, I ate one of her cookies and thought about leverage. Ellen and Woodrow had shown their hand completely tonight. They were desperate, drowning in debt, grasping at my house like it was a life preserver, but they'd made assumptions, bad ones. They assumed I was isolated. I had friends like Thomas and Bonnie. They assumed I was poor. I had resources they didn't know about. They assumed I was helpless. I had 30 years of investigative experience. My phone buzzed. Email notification. Thomas Whitmore had sent me the contact information for Arizona Adult Protective Services, plus 3 names of other attorneys who specialized in elder financial abuse. I filed it all away, methodical as always. Tomorrow was Christmas. Hubert would arrive. We'd have a quiet day, maybe watch some football, eat leftovers, normal, simple. And then, after the holiday, I would start making my moves. Ellen and Woodrow wanted my house. They'd get exactly what they deserved instead. Nothing. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. I woke at 6, same as always. My body trained by decades of early postal service shifts. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and distant sounds of neighbors starting their day. Hubert's flight would land around noon. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, looking at the folder of financial records I'd pulled last night. Every check, every transaction, documented with the precision that had made me good at my job. Ellen probably thought I'd forgotten about half these payments. People always assumed the elderly had poor memories. Big mistake. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Grover, this is Ellen. We need to talk. What happened last night was a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. I stared at the words, impressed by the audacity. 24 hours ago, they'd tried to con me out of my house. Now it was a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. Let her wait. Let her wonder. Another text came through minutes later. "Dad, please, I know you're upset, but we can work this out. Family shouldn't fight on Christmas." Family, that word again, weaponized for convenience. I poured my second cup of coffee and went through my mail. Bills, mostly. A Christmas card from my old supervisor at the Postal Service, retired now in Tucson. Another from the guys at my Thursday morning coffee group at Denny's on Bell Road, not as alone as Ellen thought. The third text came at 8. "Dad, I'm sorry, really sorry. Can we please talk?" Still no response from me. I had work to do. I called Thomas Whitmore. He picked up on the first ring, sounding alert despite it being Christmas morning. "Grover, thought I might hear from you today." Ellen's texting, calling it a misunderstanding, asking to talk. Classic backpedaling. They realize you're not going to roll over, so they're trying to manage the damage. I heard papers shuffling. Don't respond, not yet. Let them sweat a little. Meanwhile, I'm putting together a demand letter. Official notice that they owe you the full amount of loans plus interest. We'll send it after the holiday, give them 30 days to respond. And if they don't? Civil suit. We file in Maricopa County Superior Court. Claim breach of oral contract, unjust enrichment. With your documentation, it's a solid case. He paused. But Grover, I need to ask, are you sure you want to go this route? Once we file, there's no going back. Family relationships tend not to survive litigation. I thought about Ellen's face last night, the coldness in her eyes when she'd asked me to sign away my home, the way she'd looked right through me, seeing only an obstacle to her financial salvation. The relationship died last night, I said. I'm just making it official. Fair enough, I'll have the demand letter ready by next week. After we hung up, I showered and dressed, then drove to Sky Harbor Airport to pick up Hubert. The terminal was crowded with holiday travelers, but I spotted my son immediately, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a cowboy's jacket that made me shake my head. Some habits from living in Texas died hard. He pulled me into a bear hug. Dad, good to see you. You too, son. On the drive back to Sunny Slope, Hubert asked for details. I gave him everything, the full timeline, the documents, Ellen's progressive transformation from caring daughter to desperate grifter, his jaw clenched tighter with each revelation. I can't believe she'd do this. I mean, I believe you, but it's Ellen. She used to be... I know, I said quietly. I keep thinking about who she was, but that person's gone, Hubert. Or maybe she was always there, just hidden better. We pulled into my driveway. Bonnie was outside, watering her garden despite it being winter. She waved, then did a double take when she saw Hubert. Is that your boy? She called over. Hubert, from Dallas, I confirmed. Good, she said firmly. You need family around you, real family. Inside, Hubert looked around my house with the eye of someone who hadn't been home in months. Place looks great, Dad. I don't see any foundation issues or electrical problems Ellen was crying about. That's because there aren't any. I maintain it well. I showed him my maintenance log, a leather-bound notebook where I recorded every repair, every upgrade, every expense. Dates, costs, contractor names when applicable. Occupational habit, always kept detailed records. He flipped through it, shaking his head. They really thought you'd just hand this over, after all your work. They thought I was a confused old man who'd be grateful for their help. My phone rang. Ellen, I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call. I declined it. Text message. Dad, please answer. This is important. Hubert watched me ignore it. How many times has she called? That's 7 since this morning. Good. Let her panic. His face was hard, angrier than I'd seen him in years. You know what bothers me most? She deliberately didn't invite me to that dinner. She knew I'd see through their scheme, so she made sure I wasn't there. That detail had bothered me too. Ellen had always been calculating, but this level of premeditation was chilling. We spent Christmas Day quietly. Hubert made his famous breakfast tacos, a recipe he'd picked up in Texas. We watched the Cowboys game, argued good-naturedly about their chances this season, ate leftovers for dinner. Normal, comfortable, real. Around 7 p.m., a car pulled up outside. Through the window I saw Ellen's Lexus, the one they couldn't afford, but leased anyway because appearances mattered more than reality. She's here, I said. Hubert stood. Want me to handle it? No, I will. The doorbell rang. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Desperate. I opened the door. Ellen stood there, makeup smudged like she'd been crying. Woodrow lurked behind her, looking uncomfortable. Dad, she started, voice breaking. Please, can we talk? I know you're angry, but I'm not angry, I interrupted calmly. Anger implies I didn't expect better. I'm disappointed. We didn't mean it wasn't supposed to be. She stopped, searching for words that wouldn't condemn her. We just want to help you. By taking my house, by making sure you're taken care of. Woodrow stepped forward, trying to sound reasonable. Look, maybe we came on too strong last night. We're sorry about that. But the core issue remains. You're alone, getting older, and that house is a lot of responsibility. I'm managing fine. For now, Ellen pressed. But what about next year? 5 years from now? We're thinking long-term, Dad. We're trying to... Hubert appeared in the doorway behind me. Ellen's eyes widened. Hubert, what are you... Heard you had a family dinner last night, he said coldly. Funny, I wasn't invited. We thought you were busy. I was, until Dad called and told me what you tried to pull. He stepped fully into view, and suddenly my son looked very large, very protective. You ambushed him with legal documents on Christmas Eve. You tried to steal his house. It's not stealing if he agrees. He didn't agree. Hubert's voice rose. That's why you're here now, isn't it? Because your plan failed and now you're scrambling. Woodrow bristled. This is between Grover and his daughter. I'm his son. That makes it my business too. Hubert crossed his arms. How much debt are you two in anyway? $47,000 on credit cards, Ellen told Dad last night. What else? The mortgage? Car payments? Ellen's face went pale. That's none of your... You made it everyone's business when you tried to con our father out of his home. We're his children, Ellen's voice cracked. You deserve nothing, I said quietly. The words cut through the argument like a knife. You've taken $53,900 from me over the years, never paid back a cent, and now you want more. Ellen froze. 53? It wasn't that much. Emergency dental work, 2019, $4,200, property taxes, 2021, $1,800. I'd memorized every number. Want me to keep going? She looked at Woodrow, who suddenly seemed very interested in his shoes. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice calm but iron hard. You're going to leave. You're not going to contact me again with fake apologies or manipulation tactics, and you're going to wait to hear from my attorney. Your attorney? Ellen's voice went shrill. You're suing us? Your own daughter? I'm recovering what's mine. You taught me last night that blood doesn't mean much to you. I'm just returning the lesson. Woodrow grabbed Ellen's arm. Let's go. No, she jerked away. Dad, please, we're family. You can't do this. You did this, I said. The moment you prepared those papers, the moment you invited me to Christmas dinner as part of a con. You made your choice, Ellen. Now live with it. She started crying, real tears this time, but I couldn't tell if they were remorse or panic. Probably panic. The house of cards was collapsing, and she knew it. Woodrow pulled her toward the car. She looked back once, mascara running, mouth open in shock. The Lexus pulled away, taillights disappearing into the night. Hubert put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, I am. And surprisingly, I meant it. The confrontation should have hurt more, but all I felt was relief. The pretense was over. The masks were off. Now, the real work could begin. Hubert stayed 3 more days. We fell into an easy routine, coffee at sunrise, breakfast together, long conversations about everything except Ellen. He told me about his construction projects in Dallas, showed me photos of the high-rise his firm was building downtown. Normal father-son stuff we'd been missing. On the morning he left, standing by his rental car, he said, You call me if you need anything at all. I will, son. I mean it. If Ellen tries something, if Woodrow shows up, he paused. I still can't believe they did that. People do strange things when they're desperate. Desperation doesn't excuse fraud. He hugged me tight. Take care of yourself, Dad, and don't let them guilt you into backing down. After he drove away, the house felt emptier, but not lonely. There was a difference. The demand letter from Thomas arrived at Ellen's house on January 3rd. I knew because Thomas called me that afternoon. Just got confirmation of delivery, he said. Signed for by Ellen Matthews Barry at 2:15 p.m. Clock's ticking. They have 30 days to respond, or we file suit. How do you think they'll react? Panic, probably, then denial, then they'll try to negotiate. He paused. My guess? They'll contact you directly, try to work around the lawyer. Don't engage. Forward everything to me. He was right. Ellen called that night at 7. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice high-pitched, frantic. Dad, we got this letter from some lawyer, Thomas Whitmore, saying we owe you $71,000. That's insane. We never agreed to pay you back. Those were gifts. You can't just, Dad, please call me. We need to talk about this before it gets out of hand. I forwarded the message to Thomas and blocked her number. Text messages came from Woodrow's phone instead. Grover, be reasonable. We're family. We can work this out without lawyers. Blocked. Another number, probably a friend's phone. Dad, it's Ellen. Please talk to us. We can't afford $70,000. You're going to bankrupt us. That one almost made me laugh. They'd been willing to take my $340,000 house, but paying back $54,000 in actual loans was bankrupting. I blocked that number too, and sent screenshots to Thomas. "They're spiraling," he noted. "Good. Desperation leads to mistakes." The mistakes came faster than expected. On January 8th, Bonnie knocked on my door looking concerned. "Grover, there's been someone watching your house. White truck, parked down the street for hours yesterday and again today. Different driver each time, but I got the license plate." I took the information and called Thomas. He made a note, said it sounded like they might be having me surveilled, looking for leverage or evidence I was incapable of living alone. "Let them watch," I said. "They'll see a competent man maintaining his property." But Bonnie's next piece of information was more troubling. "I ran into Susan from the book club," she said 2 days later. "She mentioned Ellen had been calling around, telling people you're having memory problems and she's worried about you living alone. Susan asked if it was true." So that was their play. Spread rumors that I was incompetent, build a case for conservatorship or guardianship. Classic elder abuse tactic. Isolate the victim, control the narrative. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "The truth. That you're sharper than people half your age and Ellen's trying to steal your house." Bonnie's eyes glinted. "Word's getting around, Grover. The neighborhood knows what they tried. Ellen's not going to get much sympathy in Arcadia either. People talk." The social pressure was working in reverse. Instead of positioning me as the incompetent father, Ellen had painted herself as the greedy daughter. Their perfect image was cracking. The crack widened on January 15th when I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mr. Matthews, this is Karen Gould from Desert Logistics LLC. A woman's voice, professional, careful. "I'm calling regarding Woodrow Berry. I understand he's your son-in-law?" My pulse quickened. Desert Logistics, the company where Woody worked. The company I had a 40% stake in, though he didn't know it. "That's correct," I said carefully. "I wanted to give you a courtesy heads up. We're undergoing some organizational restructuring. Woodrow's position is being eliminated. We're offering him either a step-down role at reduced salary or a severance package. I thought you might want to know, given the family connection." I kept my voice neutral. "I appreciate you telling me, Ms. Gould." "Of course. The decision will be communicated to him tomorrow morning." After she hung up, I sat very still. This was it, the first real blow. Woody's salary of $71,000 was about to drop to $48,000, or disappear entirely if he chose severance. With their mortgage at $3,800 a month, credit card minimums probably around $1,200, car payments, utilities. The math didn't work, not even close. Thomas was right. Desperation led to mistakes, and Ellen and Woodrow were about to get very, very desperate. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt something closer to sadness. This was my daughter's life falling apart, even if she'd engineered the collapse herself. A moral dilemma tugged at me. I could call off the restructuring. One word to the managing partners and Woody's job would be safe. But then what? They'd learn nothing. The pattern would continue. They'd find another way to come after my house, my assets, my peace. No. Sometimes the kindest thing a father could do was let his children face the consequences of their choices. I poured myself a bourbon, a rare indulgence, and sat in my recliner. Tomorrow, Woodrow would get the news. Tomorrow, their financial house of cards would start its final collapse. And I would watch, calm and certain, as justice unfolded. The phone rang. Blocked number. I answered anyway, curious. Woodrow's voice, tight with rage. "This is your doing, isn't it? The restructuring at work. You did this." Interesting. He'd figured it out faster than I expected. "I don't know what you're talking about, Woodrow." "Don't play dumb, old man. Karen Gould called me tonight, gave me a heads up about tomorrow. Desert Logistics doesn't restructure. We've been stable for years. Then suddenly, right after your lawyer sends that letter, my job's cut. That's not coincidence." He was right, of course, but he couldn't prove it. "Sounds like you're having some bad luck," I said mildly. "Maybe you should have saved some of that money I loaned you instead of spending it on things you couldn't afford." "You son of a—" I hung up. Blocked that number too. The war was escalating. Ellen and Woodrow were fighting back, spreading rumors, making accusations. But they were doing it from a position of weakness, and weakness bred mistakes. My phone dinged. Email from Thomas. Heard from opposing counsel. Ellen and Woodrow hired Bradley Shaw from Shaw and Associates. Low-rent firm, lots of payment plans. They're already behind the 8 ball financially, if that's who they could afford. Expect a response to our demand letter by end of week. This should be interesting. I smiled, took another sip of bourbon, and watched the sunset through my window. The game was just beginning, and I held all the cards. Their response came on January 19th, delivered via email from Bradley Shaw at 4 in the afternoon. Thomas forwarded it to me with a single word: predictable. I read it twice, each sentence more desperate than the last. The letter denied everything, called my loans voluntary family gifts with no expectation of repayment, claimed Ellen and Woodrow had acted in good faith out of concern for Mr. Matthews's declining capacity, threatened a countersuit for emotional distress and defamation of character. Empty threats wrapped in legal jargon. I'd seen it 100 times during my career. People cornered, lashing out with whatever weapons they could grab. "They're bluffing," Thomas said when I called him. "Shaw knows it too. This is a negotiation tactic. Make noise, hope you'll settle for less than the full amount." "What's our move?" "We file suit. Tomorrow. Maricopa County Superior Court." Papers rustled on his end. "I'll include copies of every check, every bank statement. The documentation is airtight. Judge will see through their gift argument in about 5 seconds." "Do it." That night, I couldn't sleep, not from worry, from anticipation. 30 years investigating fraud had taught me patience, but also how to recognize when someone was about to break. Ellen and Woodrow were close, very close. The lawsuit hit them like a freight train. Filing happened on January 20th. By January 21st, Bonnie was at my door again, practically vibrating with news. "You'll never guess what I heard at the grocery store," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Rachel Morrison, lives 3 doors down from Ellen. She said there was screaming coming from their house last night, loud enough the neighbors heard. Something about money and lawyers and whose fault it was." "They're turning on each other," I observed, "like rats on a sinking ship." Bonnie's satisfaction was palpable. Rachel also mentioned they've been getting calls from debt collectors. Apparently they missed their January mortgage payment. The timeline made sense. Woody had taken the step-down position at Desert Logistics, couldn't afford to lose his job entirely, but the salary cut from $71,000 to $48,000 had created an immediate cash crunch. Mortgage payment due, credit card minimums, car leases, utilities. The numbers didn't add up anymore, and now they had a $71,000 judgment hanging over them. "How's Ellen handling it?" I asked, curious despite myself. "Apparently not well. Rachel saw her at Target, said she looked terrible. No makeup, sweatpants, buying store brand everything." Bonnie leaned in conspiratorially. "The Lexus is gone too. Saw it being towed last week. Lease must have gotten repoed." The mental image would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. Ellen, who'd spent 8 years building this perfect facade of success, watching it crumble piece by piece. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, another call. Different unknown number. Then a text from yet another number. "Dad, this is Ellen. Please, I'm begging you. We can't do this. We have nothing left. Please just talk to me." No punctuation, no capitalization. Pure panic in text form. I forwarded it to Thomas without responding. "They're breaking," he confirmed. "Give it another week. They'll offer to settle." He was wrong. It took 3 days. Bradley Shaw called Thomas on January 24th with a settlement offer. Ellen and Woodrow would pay back the original $53,900 over 5 years. No interest. Monthly payments of $899. Thomas laughed when he told me. "They want you to finance their fraud." That's bold. Counteroffer? Full amount, $71,900, paid within 90 days, or we proceed to judgment and execute on their assets, which means we can force the sale of their house. The house I'd helped them buy. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Send it," I said. Shaw's response came back within hours. They needed more time. Couldn't possibly pay that amount in 90 days. Please be reasonable. Thomas was unmoved. 90 days or we go to court. Your clients should have thought about this before attempting to defraud my client out of his home. The next development came from an unexpected source. On January 28th, I was having coffee at Denny's on Bell Road with my Thursday morning group, 4 retired postal workers who'd been meeting weekly for years. Frank, the oldest at 73, set down his newspaper and looked at me seriously. "Grover, I gotta ask, your daughter Ellen, she in some kind of trouble?" I set down my coffee. "Why do you ask?" My nephew works at Chase Bank. Saw her come in yesterday trying to get a personal loan, $15,000. They turned her down. Too much existing debt, missed payments, credit score in the toilet. He paused. He recognized the name, knew she was your daughter. Wanted me to mention it in case you didn't know. So, they were scrambling for cash, trying to raise enough to make a settlement offer I might accept. But with their credit destroyed and Woody's income slashed, no bank would touch them. I appreciate you telling me, Frank. She okay? I mean, is there something we should know? I could have lied, could have protected Ellen's reputation, maintained the family privacy. Instead, I told the truth. She and her husband tried to con me into signing over my house. When that failed, they've been spreading rumors about my mental capacity. Now, I'm suing them for $71,000 in unpaid loans. The silence around the table was deafening. Then Frank smiled grimly. Good. You taught her better than that. Time she learned actions have consequences. The others nodded agreement. Walt, a Vietnam veteran with a dry sense of humor, added, My ex-wife pulled similar garbage, tried to get me declared incompetent so she could control my pension. Know what I did? Same thing you're doing. Sometimes family's the worst enemy you've got. The conversation moved on, but I felt lighter somehow. These men, my real community, had my back. Ellen's rumors hadn't stuck. The truth was getting out, and it was damning her, not me. 2 days later, the breaking point arrived. I was watering my front yard when a Honda Accord pulled up, not the Lexus, something cheaper, probably a rental. Ellen got out alone, no Woodrow. She looked different, older. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a plain t-shirt. Her hair needed washing. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she wasn't sleeping. Dad, she said quietly. I turned off the hose but didn't approach. Ellen, can we talk, please? Just 5 minutes? Your lawyer can communicate with my lawyer. I don't care about the lawyers, her voice cracked. I care about my father. I care about... She stopped, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We were wrong. I was wrong. I know that now. I waited. Let the silence stretch. Woody and I were fighting constantly. About money, about the lawsuit, about whose idea the whole thing was. She wiped her eyes roughly. He's saying it was my plan all along, that he went along to make me happy, which is a lie, but... So you're turning on each other, I said. Like I knew you would. She flinched. We're drowning, Dad. The mortgage is 3 months behind. The bank's starting foreclosure proceedings. I had to sell my car just to make minimum payments on the credit cards. We have nothing left. You had my house, I said quietly. $340,000. That was the plan, wasn't it? Take it, sell it, solve all your problems? Yes. The admission came out as a whisper. Yes, that was the plan. And it was wrong. It was so wrong. I see that now. Now that it failed. No, I mean, yes, but... She struggled for words. I've been thinking about who I was, who I used to be, before Woody, before the debt, before I turned into this person I don't recognize. I thought about the girl who'd split her allowance with Hubert, the teenager who'd wanted to help broken kids, that Ellen felt like a ghost now, dead and buried under 8 years of bad choices. I remember who you were too, I said, which makes what you've become that much worse. She sobbed openly now, shoulders shaking. I know I've destroyed everything. Our relationship, your trust, everything. But please, Dad, we can't pay $71,000. We'll lose the house. We'll lose everything. You were willing to take everything from me. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. But please. She dropped to her knees on my front lawn, actually kneeled like she was begging. Please show mercy. We'll pay you back, I swear. Whatever you want, however long it takes. Just please don't take our house. The house I'd bought them. The house they'd tried to steal from me. People were watching now. Bonnie from her window. A couple walking their dog across the street. My daughter, on her knees in my yard, begging. Part of me wanted to help her, the father part. The part that remembered teaching her to ride a bike, helping with homework, walking her down the aisle. But the investigator part, the part that had spent 30 years seeing what happened when fraudsters faced no consequences, knew better. Stand up, Ellen. She did, unsteadily. You made your choices. You planned to steal from me. You brought legal documents to Christmas dinner. You spread rumors about my competence when I refused. My voice stayed level, emotionless. You taught me that blood means nothing to you, so I'm treating you the way you treated me, as a legal matter, nothing more. Dad, the offer stands, $71,900 in 90 days. Or we go to court and I execute on your assets. I picked up my hose again. You have 62 days left. I turned the water back on and resumed watering my lawn. Ellen stood there for a long moment, then walked back to her rental car like a zombie. She didn't look back. Bonnie appeared at my side minutes later. You okay? Yeah, I said. I am. And surprisingly, I meant it. No guilt, no second thoughts, just cold, clear justice, finally being served. February brought rain to Phoenix. Unusual for the desert, but fitting somehow. The city washed clean, dust and grime running into storm drains. Symbolic, maybe, or just weather. The 90-day deadline ticked down. 60 days, 50, 45. Thomas kept me updated on every development. Bradley Shaw filed a motion to extend the deadline. Denied. Filed another motion claiming the interest calculation was improper. Denied. Each rejection cost Ellen and Woodrow more in legal fees they couldn't afford. Shaw's throwing spaghetti at the wall, Thomas said during one of our weekly calls. Nothing sticking. Judge Hernandez sees through it. She's handled enough elder abuse cases to know desperation when she sees it. On February 10th, Bonnie brought over more intelligence from the neighborhood network. Ellen's working 2 jobs now, she reported, settling into my kitchen chair with her usual cup of tea. Days at Target, nights waitressing at some chain restaurant on Camelback. Rachel saw her there, said she looked exhausted. I felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, more like recognition. Ellen was working hard, finally understanding what it meant to earn money instead of demanding it. 20 years too late, but still. Woody? I asked. Still at Desert Logistics, far as I know. But Rachel mentioned seeing a U-Haul in their driveway last weekend. Thinks they might be downsizing, moving stuff to storage. Preparing for the inevitable. Smart. The house would go to foreclosure soon if they couldn't catch up on payments. Better to move valuables out before the bank took possession. My phone rang. Hubert. Dad, quick question. Did Ellen try to contact you through me? I set down my coffee. How? Got a long email from her, begging me to talk to you, convince you to drop the lawsuit. Said she's working herself to death, that Woody's having health problems from the stress, that they're losing everything. What did you tell her? Nothing yet. Wanted to check with you first. He paused. Truth is, part of me feels bad for her. She's my sister. But then I remember what she tried to do to you and... You don't owe her anything, Hubert. She made her choices. I know, just wanted to run it by you. After we hung up, I sat with my thoughts. Ellen was making a final play, using Hubert as an emotional lever, hoping family bonds would override logic. Classic manipulation, even in defeat. The phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Matthews, this is Dr. Sarah Chen from Banner University Medical Center. A woman's voice, professional but concerned. I'm calling about Woodrow Berry. You're listed as his emergency contact. My stomach dropped. I am? Yes, sir. He was brought in earlier this afternoon. Hypertensive crisis. Blood pressure was 210 over 130 when the paramedics arrived. We've got him stabilized now, but he's going to need to stay overnight for observation. I closed my eyes. This was it. The thing I'd been half waiting for. Woodrow, stressed to the breaking point, his body finally revolting. Is he going to be okay? Barring complications, yes, but Mr. Matthews, he needs to reduce his stress levels significantly. His blood pressure's been dangerously elevated for weeks, maybe months. If this continues, he's at serious risk for stroke or heart attack. I understand. Thank you for calling. After she hung up, I sat very still. Woodrow in the hospital, Ellen working 2 jobs, their house in foreclosure, their marriage fracturing. Everything I'd set in motion was working. Justice was being served. So, why did I feel hollow? I called Thomas. Woodrow's in the hospital, hypertensive crisis. A long pause. You thinking about pulling back? I don't know what I'm thinking. Grover, listen to me. This is not your fault. He did this to himself. They both did. You didn't cause his blood pressure to spike. His own choices did. I know. Do you? Because I've seen this before. The moment someone faces real consequences, they collapse. Then everyone blames the person who enforced those consequences instead of the person who created the situation in the first place. He was right, of course. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were different things. That evening, I drove to Banner University Medical Center. I told myself I was just checking, just making sure he was stable. Not because I cared, just because it was the responsible thing to do. The receptionist directed me to room 412. I found Ellen sitting in the hallway outside, head in her hands. She looked up when she heard my footsteps, and her face went through a rapid series of expressions: surprise, hope, fear, desperation. "Dad!" She stood quickly. "I didn't think... They said you were the emergency contact, but I didn't know if you'd actually come." "How is he?" "Stable, sleeping now." She gestured at the door. "They said his blood pressure was dangerously high. Could have had a stroke. Could have..." Her voice broke. "This is all my fault. All of it." I leaned against the wall opposite her, maintaining distance. "How do you figure?" "The house scheme was my idea. Woody went along with it, but I pushed. I told him we needed your house to fix everything. I convinced him you wouldn't know any better, that you'd just sign the papers." Tears streamed down her face. "I turned us into criminals. I destroyed our family. And now, Woody might die because of the stress I caused." "He's not going to die. The doctor said he's stable. This time. But what about next time? What if the stress keeps building and next time he doesn't make it?" She wiped her eyes roughly. "I can't lose him, Dad. Despite everything, I love him. And I can't watch him die because of my stupid, greedy mistakes." For the first time since Christmas Eve, I saw genuine remorse, not panic, not desperation. Actual understanding of what she'd done and who she'd become. "You should have thought about that before Christmas dinner," I said quietly. "I know." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I know, and I'll live with that forever. But Dad, please, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking you to let us survive this. Let us sell the house, pay you back however we can, and start over somewhere smaller. Somewhere we can afford. The offer stands, $71,900. Full payment." "We don't have it." Her voice rose, then dropped when she remembered where we were. "We don't have 71,000. We don't have 70. We don't have 7. We have nothing, Dad. We're negative 47,000 on credit cards, 3 months behind on the mortgage, and now we've got hospital bills. There is no money. Then you'll sell the house. And that money goes to the bank. After they take what we owe on the mortgage, there won't be enough left to pay you." I'd known this, of course. The house was worth about $520,000. After paying off the mortgage balance of roughly $360,000 and realtor fees of 6%, they'd walk away with maybe $130,000. Nowhere near enough to pay me and cover their credit card debt. "That's not my problem, Ellen. Please." She dropped to her knees again, right there in the hospital hallway. "Please, Dad, I'm begging you. Not for me, for Woody. He can't take this stress. Another episode like today and he might not make it." A nurse walked past, gave us a curious look. I pulled Ellen to her feet. "Stand up. You're making a scene." She stood trembling. Her face was blotchy from crying, makeup smeared, hair unwashed. This wasn't the polished daughter I'd known. This was someone stripped bare by consequences, finally seeing the damage she'd caused. "I'll talk to my attorney," I heard myself say. "See if we can work out a payment plan. But Ellen, this doesn't mean I forgive you. This doesn't mean we're okay. Understand?" She nodded frantically. Yes, I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Dad." I walked away before she could say anything else, before I could change my mind. Outside, the rain had picked up. I sat in my Honda, engine off, watching water streak down the windshield. Thomas wasn't going to like this. Hubert might not either. But I couldn't watch my son-in-law have a stroke over money. I couldn't be responsible for killing someone, even someone who'd tried to steal from me. Maybe this made me weak. Maybe I was making a mistake. Or maybe, just maybe, knowing when to show mercy was its own kind of strength. I started the engine and drove home through the rain, already planning the call to Thomas. Justice was important, but it didn't have to be fatal. Thomas took the news better than I expected. "You're sure about this?" he asked the next morning when I called. Rain still pattered against my kitchen window, softer now, but persistent. I'm sure. Work out a payment plan they can actually manage, something that doesn't kill Woodrow or leave them homeless. A long pause. Grover, I need you to understand what you're doing here. They tried to defraud you. They spread lies about your competence. They showed zero remorse until they got caught and faced consequences. And now you're letting them off the hook. I'm not letting them off the hook. They'll still pay every cent, just over time. 5 years? 10? I thought about Ellen's face in that hospital hallway. The genuine fear. The understanding finally of what she'd done. However long it takes for them to pay back the full amount, with reasonable interest. But Thomas, I want it documented. Legal agreement, signed by a judge, payment schedule, penalties for missed payments. This isn't forgiveness, it's structured restitution. Fair enough, I'll draft something. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Takes more strength to show mercy than to demand vengeance. After we hung up, I sat with my coffee growing cold, watching rain wash down the window panes. Was I doing the right thing? Or was I repeating the same pattern that got me here, helping Ellen when she should face full consequences? The difference, I decided, was documentation and enforcement. This time, everything would be legal, binding, and permanent. No more vague promises, no more, I'll pay you back when I can. A court order with teeth. My phone rang. Hubert. Dad, got your message. You're really letting them make payments? Yes. Why? After everything they did? I chose my words carefully. Because Woodrow's in the hospital with dangerously high blood pressure. Because Ellen's working herself to exhaustion. Because I got my point across. They know they can't manipulate me, can't steal from me, can't spread lies without consequences. I paused. And because I don't want my daughter's husband to die over money, I don't actually need. Silence on the line, then, that's probably more compassionate than they deserve. Probably, but Hubert, I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it so I can sleep at night. There's a difference between justice and revenge. I wanted justice. I got it. Now I'm choosing not to let it become something darker. I understand, Dad, and honestly, I respect that. His voice softened. You're a better man than most. The following week brought a flurry of legal activity. Thomas drafted a settlement agreement and consent judgment. Ellen and Woodrow, through their attorney Bradley Shaw, reviewed and signed it. Judge Hernandez approved it in Maricopa County Superior Court. The terms were clear. Total amount owed, $71,900. Payment plan, $300 per month for 20 years, plus interest at 8% annually. Secured by a lien on their house, meaning if they sold it, I'd be paid first from the proceeds. Penalties. 3 missed payments would trigger the full balance coming due immediately. It wasn't the fast justice I'd originally wanted, but it was certain justice, and it wouldn't kill anyone. Thomas delivered the signed documents to my house on a gray March afternoon. There you have it, he said, setting the folder on my kitchen table. Legally binding. They miss 3 payments, we can force the sale of the house and take what we're owed. But if they keep up with it, they'll pay you back in full, with interest, by 2045. I'll be 85, I observed. Assuming you live that long, yes. He smiled. But Grover, the lien transfers to your estate if something happens to you. Your heirs, Hubert, will get the money. It's protected. After Thomas left, I read through the agreement carefully. Every term, every condition, every protection. It was solid work. Ellen and Woodrow would spend the next 2 decades paying back what they'd tried to steal. The irony was almost poetic. My phone buzzed. Text from Ellen. Dad, Mr. Whitmore sent us the signed agreement. Thank you. I know we don't deserve your mercy, but thank you. First payment will be on time, I promise. I didn't respond. Let her wonder, let her work. But something shifted in my chest. Some tight thing loosening. March became April. The first payment arrived. $300 right on schedule. Then May's payment, then June's. Bonnie kept me updated on the neighborhood intelligence. Ellen's still working both jobs. Woody's back at Desert Logistics, though he looks 10 years older. They're eating at home now, never going out. Rachel says she never sees them anymore, except coming and going from work. Good. They were learning. Finally. I didn't see Ellen or Woodrow in person until late August. I was at Home Depot on Cave Creek Road, buying supplies for some yard work, when I spotted them in the garden section. Ellen saw me first. She froze, shopping cart half full of clearance plants. Woody turned, following her gaze, his expression unreadable. For a moment, we all just stood there. Then Ellen approached slowly, like she was afraid I might bolt. "Hi, Dad." "Ellen, how are you?" "Fine. You?" She laughed, sharp and bitter. "Tired, broke, but alive." She gestured at the cart. "Trying to pretty up our yard, make the house more valuable in case we do have to sell eventually." Woodrow stepped forward, and I noticed how much thinner he looked. The weight he'd carried at Christmas was gone, replaced by a gaunt wariness. "Mr. Matthews," he said quietly. Not Grover, not even the dismissive tone from before. Just formal, careful respect. I wanted to say, "I know it doesn't mean much now, but I'm sorry for everything. The dinner, the papers, all of it. It was wrong." I studied him, looking for manipulation, for angles. Found only exhaustion and what looked like genuine shame. "You almost died," I said. He nodded. "Doctor says my blood pressure's under control now. Medication, diet, stress management." A bitter smile. "Turns out not trying to con your father-in-law reduces stress significantly." Despite myself, I felt my mouth twitch. Almost a smile. Ellen looked between us, hope flickering in her eyes. "We've made 4 payments, on time, every time." "I know. We'll keep making them, however long it takes." She swallowed hard. "I know you don't forgive us. I know we destroyed your trust. But maybe, in 20 years, when it's all paid back, maybe we could try to be a family again." 20 years. I'd be 85. Ellen would be 58. Woodrow, 60. A lifetime. "Maybe," I said carefully, "if you keep your word. If you rebuild your character the way you're rebuilding your finances. Maybe." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a door left slightly open. We parted ways in that Home Depot garden section, each to our own broken pieces, trying to figure out how to build something better from the wreckage. I drove home through late afternoon sun, Phoenix heat shimmering off the asphalt, and thought about justice and mercy and the thin line between them. Ellen and Woodrow had learned their lesson the hard way. They'd lost their perfect image, their financial security, their easy life. They'd learned that actions have consequences, that manipulation doesn't work on everyone, that you can't steal from people who see you clearly. And I'd learned something too. That being right doesn't always mean being ruthless. That showing mercy, when it's structured, documented, and enforced, isn't weakness. That sometimes the strongest thing a father can do is let his children fall, help them get back up, and then let them walk their own path forward. The road ahead was long for all of us. But for the first time since Christmas Eve, I thought we might actually make it. September arrived with cooler mornings and the promise of autumn. Phoenix never got a real fall, but the edge came off the heat, made things bearable again. I was trimming hedges in my front yard when Hubert's truck pulled into the driveway. He'd flown in for the weekend, something about checking on a construction project, but really, I suspected, checking on me. "Need help with that?" he called, climbing out. "I'm 65, not 90, I replied, but I was smiling. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." We worked in comfortable silence for a while, father and son maintaining a house that nobody had managed to steal. When we finished, we sat on my porch with cold drinks, watching Bonnie water her garden across the street. "Payment came through yesterday," I mentioned casually. "Number 5, still on time." Hubert nodded. "Think they'll actually make it, all 20 years?" "Maybe, if they learned what they needed to learn." I took a drink. Failure's a good teacher when people actually listen. Speaking of which, Hubert pulled out his phone. "Ellen sent me an email asking if you'd be willing to meet for coffee. Just coffee, neutral territory. She wants to apologize properly, she says, face to face." I considered this. 5 months since that hospital hallway. 5 payments made. 5 months of Ellen working 2 jobs, Woodrow managing his health, both of them living with the consequences of their choices. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think..." Hubert chose his words carefully. "I think she's learned something. Whether it's enough, I don't know. But she's trying, Dad. Really trying. I've talked to her a few times. She's different, humbler, more aware of what she did." And Woodrow? Same. He got scared. Really scared. The hospital thing shook him. Made him realize there are worse things than being poor. Hubert paused. I'm not saying you have to forgive them. I'm just saying, maybe hear them out? I thought about it while Bonnie waved from across the street, while a monsoon cloud built on the horizon, while the desert prepared for one of its rare September storms. Set it up, I said finally. But make it clear, this doesn't change anything legally. The payment plan stands. This is just a conversation. Understood. 3 days later, I sat in a Starbucks on Camelback Road, nursing a black coffee and watching the door. Ellen arrived first, looking nervous. She'd dressed simply, jeans, a plain blouse, minimal makeup. The woman who'd shown up to Christmas dinner, dripping in designer labels, was gone. Dad. She slid into the seat across from me. Thank you for coming. 5 minutes, I said. That's what Hubert told you, right? Yes, 5 minutes. She took a breath. I won't waste them. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not the sorry I said before, when I was panicking and desperate. I mean, really sorry, for who I became, for what I tried to do to you. I waited. I've been thinking a lot, she continued, about when it all went wrong. It wasn't sudden, it was gradual. Little choices, little compromises, spending money we didn't have, keeping up appearances, justifying it by saying everyone does it. She met my eyes. But the worst part? I started seeing you as an obstacle instead of my father, as a resource instead of a person. That's an accurate assessment, I said quietly. I know, and I hate that I did it. I hate that Woody and I sat in our expensive house, eating expensive food, and plotted to take your home. Your home, Dad. The place where you raised me and Hubert, where Mom lived before she passed. We were going to steal it. Her voice broke on the last word. She took a moment, composed herself. Woody's outside, she said. In the car. He wanted to come in, but I told him I needed to talk to you first, to tell you something he doesn't even know. I raised an eyebrow. The whole thing, the quitclaim deed, the Christmas dinner scheme, it was my idea, not his. He went along with it, yes. But I'm the one who found the forms online. I'm the one who convinced him you wouldn't know any better. I'm the one who said we deserved it. She wiped her eyes. I can't let him take the blame anymore. It was me. I did this. This I hadn't expected. Why tell me now? I asked. Because I need you to know the truth. Because Woody's been carrying guilt for both of us, and it's not fair. And because... She swallowed hard. Because I'm trying to become someone who tells the truth, even when it makes me look worse, even when there's nothing to gain from it. I studied her, looking for manipulation, for angles. Found only exhaustion and what looked like genuine remorse. Your payment came through yesterday, I said. On time. It'll always be on time. We made a spreadsheet, put it in the budget before anything else, before food, before utilities. You get paid first, every month, for the next 20 years. Woodrow okay with that? Woodrow's idea, actually. He said if we can't honor our debts, we don't deserve to eat. She smiled sadly. He's changed too, Dad. Lost 40 pounds, manages his blood pressure now, works hard, doesn't complain. We're different people than we were on Christmas Eve. Different how? Smaller, more honest, less impressive to look at maybe, but real. We're real now. We know what we can afford. We know who we are. We know what we did. She looked down at her hands. We're ashamed, but we're trying to build something better from that shame. The 5 minutes had stretched to 15. Neither of us had noticed. Does Woodrow want to come in? I asked. Ellen's head snapped up, hope and fear mixing in her expression. Are you sure? 5 minutes. Him too. She practically ran outside. Returned with Woodrow, who looked like he'd rather face a firing squad. He sat stiffly, hands folded on the table. Mr. Matthews, he said, thank you for seeing us. You wanted to say something? Yes, sir. I wanted to apologize. For Christmas Eve. For the disrespect. For... He stopped, started over. I was raised better than that. My parents taught me to honor my elders, to work for what I have, to never take what isn't mine. And I forgot all of it. I let desperation and fear turn me into someone I'm not. Fear of what? I asked. Losing everything, being exposed as a failure, having people see that the successful image was fake. He met my eyes. I almost died, Mr. Matthews. Blood pressure 210 over 130. Doctor said another few hours and I'd have stroked out. I was 40 years old, and I almost died because I was terrified of being poor. And now? Now I am poor, our credit's destroyed. We live paycheck to paycheck. We shop at thrift stores. And you know what? I sleep better than I have in years. He leaned forward. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to forget. I just wanted you to know you did the right thing, holding us accountable, making us face what we did. If you'd just given us the house, we'd have learned nothing. We'd have done it again to someone else. Probably, I agreed. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Ellen spoke. We'd like, if you're willing, to maybe see you sometimes. Not family dinners or holidays or anything big. Just coffee once in a while. Let you see that we're keeping our word, that we're trying to be better. I considered this. 20 years was a long time to carry anger, a long time to hold a grudge. And these two broken people sitting across from me, they weren't the same ones who tried to con me on Christmas Eve. Once a month, I said finally. Coffee, 1 hour. We talk about normal things, work, weather, whatever. No money, no sob stories, just normal conversation. Really? Ellen's voice trembled. On one condition. They both tensed. You bring Hubert. He's part of this family too. And I want him to see you keeping your word, making your payments, rebuilding your lives the right way. Ellen broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Woodrow put an arm around her, his own eyes wet. Thank you, he said quietly. We won't let you down. You already did, I said evenly. Now you get to spend 20 years proving you won't do it again. We left Starbucks as monsoon clouds opened up, rain hammering the parking lot. Ellen and Woodrow ran for their car, a beat-up Toyota that had replaced the repoed Lexus. As they drove away, I saw Ellen turn back, just once, to wave. I waved back. The first monthly coffee happened in October. Ellen and Woodrow showed up 10 minutes early, nervous as teenagers. Hubert came too, playing mediator, but mostly just watching. We talked about Phoenix traffic, about the unusual rain, about a new taco place that had opened on Indian School Road. Normal, mundane things. It was awkward but honest. The payment came through that month, and the next, and the next. By December, 1 year since that disastrous Christmas Eve, we'd settled into a routine. Monthly coffee, monthly payments, no drama, no manipulation, just slow, steady progress towards something that might, one day, 20 years from now, resemble a family again. I spent Christmas Day with Hubert and his family. He'd brought them down from Dallas for the week. We had lunch, opened presents, watched football. Normal, real. Ellen and Woodrow didn't expect an invitation, didn't ask for one. They sent a card, simple, handwritten, wishing me well and confirming the January payment was ready. Small gestures, appropriate boundaries, earned respect instead of demanded forgiveness. On a warm evening in late September 2025, I sat on my porch with Bonnie, watching the sunset paint the desert orange and gold. They still making payments? She asked. Every month, like clockwork. Think they learned? I thought about Ellen working 2 jobs, about Woodrow managing his health, living within his means, about the humility I'd seen in their eyes, the genuine shame, the slow rebuilding of character. Yeah, I said. I think they did. You forgive them? I considered this carefully. No, not yet. Maybe not ever, the way they want me to. But I respect what they're doing. I respect that they're trying. That's enough for now. Bonnie nodded sagely. Sometimes enough is all you get. We sat in comfortable silence, 2 old people who'd seen enough of life to know that justice and mercy weren't opposites. That strength sometimes meant saying no, sometimes meant saying yes, and wisdom was knowing which was which. My house stood behind me, maintained, paid for, mine. The house they'd tried to steal, the house I'd defended, the house that would one day pass to Hubert and his children. Ellen and Woodrow would spend 20 years paying me back. 20 years learning that actions have consequences. 20 years building character from the ruins of their greed. And I would spend those years living the life I'd earned, not bitter, not cruel, but not a victim either. Strong, independent, fair. The sun sank below the horizon. Bonnie said goodnight. I went inside my quiet house, made myself dinner, and read a book until bedtime. Just a regular evening in the life of Grover Matthews. 65 years old, gray-haired, weathered, and nobody's fool. Not now, not ever again. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.